The room smells of cheap cologne and sweat, a mix of shame and thrill clinging to the air. I pull on my jeans, feeling the rough fabric against my skin, a sharp contrast to the silky sheets we just tangled in. She's still sprawled on the bed, her dark hair a messy halo on the pillow, her legs lazily draped over the edge. Her name doesn't matter. We don't talk much. Never did. It's always been about the escape, the rush, the raw physicality that snaps me out of the monotony of my life. I can't say I love her, because I don't. Hell, I don't even like her half the time. But that doesn't stop me from coming back, weekend after weekend, to this dingy motel on the outskirts of town. It's not her I crave, but the release, the temporary amnesia she provides. The way she lets me forget about the cold silence that fills my house, the icy indifference that greets me every time I step through the front door. My wife, she used to be warm, used to smile, used to care. Now she's a ghost drifting through our home without a word, without a touch. We exist in parallel worlds, barely intersecting, only colliding when absolutely necessary. She doesn't ask where I go on weekends, and I don't offer any explanations. It's an unspoken agreement, a dance we've perfected over the years. But there's always been a nagging fear at the back of my mind, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, she knows more than she lets on. I leave the motel without a backward glance, my mind already shifting to the evening ahead. Another night of icy stares, of forced conversations over dinner, if we even make it that far. I'm not sure when it started, this growing distance between us, but I know it's been a long time since we really talked, really connected. Maybe that's why I keep going back to the motel, keep finding myself in the arms of a woman whose name I barely remember. The drive home is a blur, my thoughts a chaotic mess of guilt and anticipation. I pull into the driveway, my heart pounding in my chest as I step out of the car. The house is dark as usual, and for a moment I let out a sigh of relief. Maybe tonight will be like all the others, cold, distant, but manageable. But when I reach the front door, something's off. The porch light is on, casting an eerie glow over the doorway, and my stomach tightens. As I push open the door, I'm greeted not by my wife, but by a woman I've only seen in passing, my affair partner's wife. "Bitch, here are your divorce papers. Your hubby is mine now. Get out." Her voice is cold, her eyes full of satisfaction as she shoves a package into my hands. My hands tremble as I take it, dread pooling in my gut. I look down at the package, my mind racing, and I know deep down that everything is about to change. My hands shake as I tear open the package, the envelope almost slipping from my fingers. Inside, there's a thick stack of papers, neatly organized in a way that makes my stomach churn. I sift through them quickly, photographs, bank statements, and detailed logs of every sordid encounter I thought I'd kept hidden. My breath catches as I recognize the images. Me with her in places I thought were safe. The photographs are the worst. Grainy, zoomed-in shots of me entering the motel, leaving with her, even a close-up of my hand brushing against her back as we walk to the car. Each image feels like a slap to the face, reminding me of every poor decision, every lie I've told. I flip through to the end of the stack, my eyes scanning for anything that might explain why this is happening now. Then I find it, a letter, neatly typed, with my wife's name signed at the bottom in her elegant, familiar handwriting. My mouth goes dry as I read the words, each sentence tightening the noose around my neck. She knew. She's known for years. The letter is cold, calculated, detailing how she's watched me, how she's waited. It's clear she's been planning this for a long time, collecting evidence, biding her time until she could strike. My head spins, trying to process how she could have kept this secret so well, playing the role of the distant, disinterested wife, while all the while she was laying the groundwork to destroy me. "I hope it was worth it," the letter reads, "because you're going to lose everything." Panic floods my system. I drop the papers on the coffee table and reach for my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I can barely type out the number. I try calling her, but it goes straight to voicemail. I leave a message, my voice cracking as I beg her to talk to me, to explain, to tell me what the hell is going on. But deep down, I know she won't call back. I try to think, to figure out my next move, but my mind is a whirlwind of fear and regret. I can't stay in the house. Every corner of it feels tainted now, like I'm being watched. I need to get out. Need to clear my head. Without thinking, I grab my keys and head for the door, leaving the package on the table. That letter still lying open like an accusation. Driving feels surreal, the city lights blurring as I speed down streets I barely recognize. My mind races, jumping from one thought to the next. How long has she known? Why didn't she say anything? Why now? I try calling her again, then my affair partner, but there's no answer from either. The silence is suffocating, pressing down on me like a physical weight. It's as if they've both vanished, leaving me alone to unravel the mess I've created. Eventually, I pull into a parking lot, the bright lights of a 24-hour diner casting long shadows across the asphalt. I sit there for what feels like hours, my mind racing through the possibilities. I could confront her, demand answers. But what good would that do? She's got the upper hand now, and she knows it. Instead, I try to think logically, to figure out my next steps. I need a lawyer, so that much is clear. But who can I trust? My usual guy isn't an option. He's more of a family friend, someone who would likely sympathize with her. I need someone ruthless, someone who can help me fight back. I pull out my phone and start searching for names, but everyone I find only reminds me of how unprepared I am for this. My mind keeps drifting back to the letter, the cold, clinical way she described her plan, how she's been patiently waiting for the right moment. I can't shake the feeling that this is only the beginning, that she's got more up her sleeve, and I'm walking right into her trap. Eventually, I realize I'm getting nowhere, just spiraling into a deeper panic. I start the car again, heading back to the motel. It's the only place I can think of where I might find some answers. Maybe she's there. Maybe she can explain what the hell is going on. The motel looks even dingier in the harsh light of early morning, the neon sign flickering weakly as I pull into the lot. My stomach churns as I approach the door of the room we always use, my heart pounding in my chest. But when I knock, there's no answer. I try the door, and it swings open easily, revealing an empty room. The bed is made, the air stale and thick with the smell of cleaning products. I check my phone again. No messages, no missed calls. The silence is deafening. I stand in the middle of the room, my mind a blank, trying to figure out what to do next. It feels like the walls are closing in on me, the air too thick to breathe. Then I remember the package. There was more in there than just the letter. Maybe there's something I missed, something that can help me understand what's happening. I rush back to the house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turn white. The package is still on the coffee table, untouched. I pick it up, rifling through the contents more carefully this time. There are bank statements showing transfers I didn't authorize, withdrawals I can't explain, and then, tucked between the pages, I find a small USB drive. I stare at it for a long moment, dread coiling in my stomach. I don't want to know what's on it, but I know I have to. My laptop is on the kitchen counter, and I plug the drive in with shaking hands. The screen flickers to life, a single video file staring back at me. I click on it, my breath catching in my throat as the video starts to play. It's security footage, grainy, black and white, but clear enough to make out the figures. It's my wife sitting in a dimly lit room, talking to a man I don't recognize. They're discussing me, my affair, and the details of their plan. My blood runs cold as I listen to them talk, their voices low and conspiratorial. It's like watching a nightmare unfold, every word twisting the knife deeper. They've been planning this for months, maybe years, slowly building a case against me, gathering evidence, setting me up to fall. The video ends and I sit there in stunned silence, my mind racing. This isn't just about the affair. It's about control, about power. She's been playing me, manipulating me, and I never saw it coming. I can't stay here. I grab my phone and call the one person I know I can trust, an old friend who's helped me out of tight spots before. He answers on the second ring, his voice gruff and no nonsense. I need help, I say, my voice barely above a whisper. It's my wife. She's been planning something, and I don't know what to do. There's a long pause on the other end, then a sigh. "You'd better come over. We need to talk." I hang up, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I can't do it alone. I need to figure out how deep this goes, how much she's planned, and how I can fight back. Because one thing is clear, this isn't just about a divorce. It's about survival. As I leave the house, I glance back at the package one last time. That USB drive still plugged into my laptop. The evidence is there, all laid out in black and white. But what I don't know is how much more she has, how many more steps ahead of me she is. And that thought, more than anything else, terrifies me. The moment I sit down with the lawyer, I realize how deep I'm in. Her office is cold, sterile, the walls lined with law books that seem to stare down at me with judgment. She's a sharp-looking woman, mid-40s, with a no-nonsense air about her that makes me uneasy. I've heard of her before. She's known for being ruthless, exactly what I need, or so I thought. "Your wife has already moved to freeze your accounts?" she says. Her voice is flat as the paper she slides across the desk. "She's also filed for divorce, citing adultery, emotional cruelty, and financial misconduct." I stare at the documents, my heart sinking. She's covered all her bases, and I can see the precision in her actions. Every transaction I thought was hidden, every careless move laid out in black and white. How, how did she do this so quickly? "She's been planning this for a long time," the lawyer replies, her eyes flicking up to meet mine. "There's evidence here that she's been collecting for years. I'm guessing she had everything ready and just waited for the right moment to strike." My mind races. The lawyer's words confirm what I feared. This isn't just a spur-of-the-moment reaction. My wife's been orchestrating this downfall, watching, waiting, like a predator stalking its prey. And now I'm caught in her trap with no clear way out. I try to think of a countermove, some way to regain control, but every option feels like a dead end. "What can I do?" I ask, the desperation in my voice obvious even to me. "We'll fight it," she says, though there's little conviction in her tone. "But I have to be honest with you. It's going to be an uphill battle. She has all the evidence, and unless we can find a way to discredit it or show she acted with malicious intent, the court will likely side with her." I nod, my mind barely processing her words. "And what about my accounts, my assets?" She taps a few keys on her laptop, pulling up more files. "She's requested a freeze pending the divorce. If granted, it means you won't have access to any joint accounts or assets until this is resolved. We can challenge it, but again, given the circumstances, I feel the walls closing in around me. Every move I make, she's anticipated. Every option I consider, she's already blocked. I'm starting to realize just how thorough she's been, and it terrifies me. I need to find out more about what she's planning. There has to be something I can use against her." The lawyer leans back in her chair, considering. "You might need a private investigator, someone who can dig into her life the way she's dug into yours, but it'll be expensive, and with your accounts potentially frozen." "I'll figure something out," I cut in, more out of desperation than confidence. I have to believe there's a way out of this, even if it feels like I'm grasping at straws. As I leave the office, the weight of what's happening crashes down on me. I've lost control of my life, my marriage, everything. And the more I think about it, the more I realize how naive I've been, thinking I could juggle this double life without consequences. Back at home, I try calling my affair partner again, but there's still no response. It's like she's vanished, leaving me alone to deal with the mess we created. I send a few texts, increasingly frantic, but the silence is deafening. Then as I'm pacing the living room, my phone buzzes. A message from her. My heart leaps, but the relief is short-lived as I read the words. "We need to talk. I'm at your office." My office? Why there? The thought sends a chill down my spine, but I grab my keys and head out, hoping she has some kind of explanation, anything to help me understand what's going on. When I arrive, she's waiting outside, her face pale and drawn. She looks different, nervous, vulnerable, not at all like the confident woman I've been sneaking around with. As I approach, she glances around, as if checking to make sure we're alone. "What the hell is going on?" I ask, keeping my voice low, trying to mask the fear that's creeping into my tone. She doesn't answer right away, Just looks at me with those wide, dark eyes that used to draw me in, but now make me uneasy. They know everything, she finally says, her voice trembling. Your wife, my husband, they've been working together. This was all a setup. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you mean a setup? They wanted us to get involved, she explains, her voice shaking. They knew about us long before we even started. It was all part of their plan. They've been collecting evidence, waiting for the right time to destroy us both. I feel like the ground is slipping out from under me. How long have you known? She looks away, guilt flashing across her face. I suspected something a few weeks ago, but I didn't realize how deep it went until now. Rage bubbles up inside me, mixing with the fear and confusion. Why the hell didn't you tell me? We could have stopped this. I didn't know what to do, she snaps, her voice cracking with emotion. I was scared, okay? I thought maybe if we just stopped, it would go away. But it didn't go away. It's here, and it's tearing my life apart. I can't help but feel a surge of anger toward her for dragging me deeper into this mess. But I know that's not fair. I was a willing participant, blinded by my own desires, too arrogant to see the trap closing around me. So what now, I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. She shakes her head, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know. I'm scared, and I don't know what to do. For a moment, we just stand there in the dim light of the parking lot, both of us trapped in this nightmare. I want to comfort her, to tell her we'll figure it out. But the truth is, I'm just as lost as she is. As the days pass, the situation only gets worse. Her husband starts showing up at my work, not saying anything, just watching. It's unnerving, like he's waiting for me to break. My wife, meanwhile, remains out of reach. Every attempt to contact her is met with silence, her lawyer's messages growing more aggressive with each passing day. The paranoia starts to eat away at me. I can't sleep, can't think straight. I keep looking over my shoulder, expecting the worst. The stress is unbearable, and it's starting to show. My colleagues at work are giving me strange looks, whispers following me down the hallways. It's like everyone knows, like they're all in on this sick game my wife and her lover have set up. Then one night, as I'm lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzes again. It's a message from an unknown number. Check your email. I sit up, my heart pounding, and fumble for my laptop. The email is short, just a link and a single sentence. You deserve to know the truth. I hesitate, fear gnawing at my insides, but I click the link. It takes me to a folder full of documents, photos, and videos, evidence of my wife's affair. And not just any affair, but one with my best friend, the person I've confided in, trusted with my darkest secrets. The betrayal hits me like a truck. I can barely breathe as I scroll through the files, each one a new stab to the heart. They've been together for years, laughing behind my back, plotting my downfall while pretending to care. I don't know what to do, who to turn to. I feel like I'm drowning, every part of my life collapsing around me. The realization that I've been played, that I've lost everything, sends me spiraling into a darkness I've never felt before. As the night drags on, I start to wonder if this is it. If this is where I break, where I lose myself completely. Because right now it feels like I'm hanging by a thread, and that thread is about to snap. The trial begins, and it's a nightmare. I sit there, feeling like a caged animal as my wife's lawyer dismantles my life piece by piece. She's ruthless, painting me as a cold, calculated adulterer who's destroyed his marriage with no remorse. Every word she says feels like a punch to the gut, but I can't show any weakness. I have to stay strong, even as I feel the walls closing in around me. The courtroom is sterile, the air heavy with tension. My wife sits across from me, her expression unreadable. I barely recognize the woman I once loved. She's cold, distant, like a stranger who's wearing her face. Her lawyer brings out every piece of evidence she's collected over the years. Photos, bank statements, emails, each one more damning than the last. I can feel the jury's eyes on me, judging me, condemning me. I want to shout, to defend myself, but I know it's pointless. She's been planning this for so long, and I'm just now realizing how outmatched I am. I can see the satisfaction in her lawyer's eyes as she builds her case, knowing she has me backed into a corner. The tension in the courtroom is palpable as the trial drags on. My own lawyer tries to fight back, but it's clear she's struggling. Every argument she makes is met with a cold, calculated response from my wife's lawyer. It's like they've anticipated every move, and I'm left grasping at straws. Then comes the moment I've been dreading, the surveillance footage. My stomach churns as the screen lights up with grainy video of me sneaking into the motel, my affair partner at my side. The room is silent as the video plays, the images telling the story of my betrayal in stark, undeniable detail. I glance over at my wife, hoping for some sign of emotion, some crack in her armor, but there's nothing. She watches the video with the same cold detachment she's shown throughout the trial. It's like she's completely removed from the situation, as if this is all just a game to her. When the video ends, the silence in the room is deafening. I can feel the weight of the evidence pressing down on me, suffocating me. My lawyer tries to spin it, to argue that the footage is out of context, but it's clear no one's buying it. The damage is done, and I know I'm losing this battle. But just as I'm about to give in to despair, something catches my eye. Something in the footage that doesn't add up. It's subtle, a small detail that anyone else would have missed, but it's enough to spark a glimmer of hope. I lean over to my lawyer and whisper what I've noticed, and I can see her eyes widen as she realizes the significance. We call for a recess, and my lawyer immediately goes to work, digging into the details I've pointed out. It's a long shot, but it's all I have left. If this doesn't work, I'm finished. The next day, we're back in court, and my lawyer is ready. She starts by questioning the authenticity of the footage, pointing out the inconsistencies I noticed. It's a risky move, but it pays off. The judge agrees to a closer examination of the evidence, and we start to unravel the carefully constructed narrative my wife and her team have put together. It turns out the footage was edited, spliced together to create a damning sequence that doesn't reflect the full truth. My lawyer argues that this manipulation is evidence of my wife's malicious intent, that she's been setting me up from the start. The judge listens, and for the first time since this trial began, I feel like I have a chance. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifts as the focus turns to my wife and her lawyer. They're on the defensive now, scrambling to explain the discrepancies. My wife's mask of calm begins to crack, her composure slipping as the pressure mounts. It's a small victory, but it's enough to give me the strength to keep fighting. As the trial continues, my lawyer digs deeper into my wife's actions, exposing the lengths she's gone to in order to destroy me. The evidence of her own affair with my best friend comes to light, painting a picture of a woman who's just as guilty as I am. The courtroom is buzzing with tension as the tables start to turn, the power dynamics shifting in my favor. But it's not over yet. My wife's lawyer is still a formidable opponent, and she fights back with everything she has. The trial becomes a brutal back and forth, each side trying to land the final blow. I'm exhausted, my nerves frayed, but I can't give up. I've come too far to lose now. The peak of the tension hits when my wife is called to the stand. I watch her closely, my heart pounding in my chest as she takes her place. Her lawyer tries to control the narrative, but my lawyer is relentless, pushing her to answer the tough questions. The cracks in her facade grow deeper, and I can see the strain in her eyes as she tries to keep up the act. Finally, my lawyer asks the question that changes everything. Isn't it true that you orchestrated this entire situation to punish your husband for your own infidelity? The courtroom goes silent, all eyes on my wife as she hesitates. I can see the conflict in her expression, the struggle to maintain control. But under the weight of the evidence, she finally breaks. She admits to the affair, to the manipulation, to the years of planning and deceit. The tension in the room is electric as the truth comes out, the carefully constructed lies unraveling before everyone's eyes. I feel a mix of relief and disbelief as I watch her confession, the reality of what she's done sinking in. It's a hollow victory, knowing that the woman I once loved has been consumed by her need for revenge. But it's a victory nonetheless. The trial ends with a settlement that's far more favorable than I ever could have hoped for. My wife's plans have backfired, and though I've lost so much in the process, I've managed to salvage a piece of my life. But the damage is done, and I know things will never be the same. As I leave the courtroom, the weight of everything that's happened hits me all at once. I've spent so much time fighting to survive, to hold on to something, anything, that I haven't had a chance to process the true cost of this ordeal. I've lost my marriage, my best friend, and a part of myself that I'll never get back. I try to reach out to my affair partner, hoping for some kind of closure, but she's gone, vanished without a trace, leaving me to pick up the pieces alone. I don't blame her. We were both pawns in a game we didn't understand, and now we're paying the price. In the days that follow, I start to rebuild, but it's a slow, painful process. The victory in court feels hollow, the consequences of my actions weighing heavily on me. My wife's betrayal, my own infidelity, the lies and the deceit, it's all too much to bear at times. I've become a shadow of the man I once was, haunted by the darkness that's been exposed within me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust again, to love again, but I have to try. I owe it to myself to at least try. One night, as I'm sitting alone in my empty house, I receive a message from my lawyer. It's a simple note congratulating me on the outcome of the trial and offering some words of encouragement. But at the end of the message, there's a line that sticks with me. You've been through hell, but you've come out the other side. Now it's time to start living again. I stare at those words for a long time, wondering if it's really possible. Can I move on from this? Can I find a way to live with what I've done, with what's been done to me? I don't know the answer, but as I close my laptop and look around the empty room, I realize that I have to try. Because if I don't, then all of this, everything I've lost, everything I've fought for, will have been for nothing. The journey ahead is uncertain, but it's a journey I have to take. I've faced the darkness, and now it's time to find the light. I sit in my car outside the courthouse, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turn white. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot, but I can't bring myself to get out. The trial is over, and I should feel relief, but all I feel is an empty void where my life used to be. Everything I've known has been destroyed. My marriage, my friendships, my reputation, gone. And the worst part is, I know I'm not blameless. I played my part in this twisted game, thinking I could outmaneuver everyone, but I was wrong. My wife's plan was flawless, but in the end, it was my own actions that brought me down. The flaw I found in her evidence was a lifeline. It allowed me to negotiate better terms in the divorce, to avoid complete financial ruin, but it came at a cost. I had to expose her affair with my best friend, dragging them both through the mud. I didn't do it out of revenge, though the thought crossed my mind. I did it because it was the only way to save myself from total annihilation. But now that it's over, the victory feels hollow. I've hurt so many people, including myself. I keep replaying the moments in my head, wondering if I could have done something differently. If I had been more honest, more faithful, maybe none of this would have happened. But it's too late for that now. I finally forced myself to step out of the car, my legs heavy as I make my way to the entrance. The courthouse is almost empty, just a few stragglers finishing up their business for the day. I walk down the hallway, my footsteps echoing off the walls until I reach the exit. Outside, the air is cool, a stark contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. I take a deep breath, trying to clear my head, but the memories cling to me like a second skin. The way my wife looked at me during the trial, her eyes filled with contempt and betrayal. The way my best friend, the man I trusted more than anyone, sat there silently, his guilt written all over his face. I walk aimlessly, not sure where I'm going. My lawyer told me to take some time to figure out what I want to do next, but I don't even know where to start. My house is empty, a reminder of everything I've lost. The idea of going back there makes my skin crawl. Instead, I find myself at a bar, the kind of place where the lights are dim and no one asks questions. I order a drink, something strong, and sit at the end of the counter, nursing it slowly. The alcohol burns as it goes down, but it does little to numb the pain that's gnawing at me from the inside. As the night wears on, the bar fills up, but I barely notice. I'm lost in my thoughts, the events of the past few months playing out in my mind like a bad movie. I keep thinking about her, my wife, and how everything went so wrong. I was unfaithful, yes, but I never imagined she would go to such lengths to destroy me. I underestimated her, and that was my biggest mistake. I think about the affair, about the thrill of it all, and how it blinded me to the reality of my situation. I wasn't in love. I was just running from the problems at home, from the coldness that had crept into our marriage. I wanted something to make me feel alive again, but all it did was push me further into darkness. Eventually, I leave the bar, the alcohol making my steps unsteady. I don't have a destination in mind, just the need to keep moving, to outrun the thoughts that are chasing me. But no matter how far I walk, I can't escape them. I end up back at my house, standing outside the front door with a sense of dread. The place feels like a tomb, filled with the ghosts of my past. I don't want to go inside, but I know I can't avoid it forever. I fumble with the keys, my hands shaking, and finally push the door open. The house is dark and quiet, just as I left it. I close the door behind me, the sound echoing through the empty rooms. I stand there for a moment, letting the silence wash over me before I start moving through the house. Everything is exactly as it was, but it feels different now. The furniture, the pictures on the walls, the little knickknacks my wife used to collect, they all seem out of place, like they belong to someone else. I walk through the rooms, the memories flooding back with every step. I end up in the bedroom, the place where it all started to fall apart. The bed is neatly made, but it feels like a mockery now. I sit on the edge, my head in my hands, trying to make sense of it all. But there's no sense to be made. I made my choices, and now I'm paying the price. I lie back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, my mind racing. I keep thinking about what my lawyer said, about how I need to move on, to start living again. But I don't know how to do that. Everything I knew, everything I thought I could count on, has been ripped away from me. As I lie there, the exhaustion finally catches up with me, and I drift off into a restless sleep. The dreams are fragmented, filled with images of my wife, my best friend, the courtroom, all twisted together in a nightmare that I can't escape. When I wake up, the room is filled with the early morning light, but it doesn't bring any comfort. I feel as empty as I did the night before, the weight of my situation pressing down on me. I know I need to get up, to start figuring out what comes next, but I can't seem to find the energy. I lie there for a long time, my mind wandering. I keep thinking about the future, about how I'm supposed to move forward from this. But the truth is, I don't know if I can. The thought of starting over, of trying to rebuild my life from the ground up, feels overwhelming. Eventually, I force myself to get out of bed. I take a shower, the hot water scalding my skin, but it does little to wash away the numbness that settled over me. I dress mechanically, my mind elsewhere, and make my way downstairs. The house is still and quiet, the kind of silence that feels oppressive. I make a cup of coffee, but it tastes like ash in my mouth. I sit at the kitchen table, staring out the window, but my thoughts are far away. I know I need to start making decisions, to figure out what I'm going to do next, but every option feels like a dead end. I could try to leave this place, to start fresh somewhere new, but the thought of that terrifies me. I could stay, try to pick up the pieces of my life, but I don't know if I have the strength. As I sit there, lost in thought, my phone buzzes with a message. It's from my lawyer, checking in on me, asking how I'm doing. I start to type a response, but I stop myself. What can I say? That I'm fine? That I'm moving on? It would be a lie. I put the phone down and take a deep breath, trying to clear my head. I can't keep wallowing in this. I need to do something, anything, to pull myself out of this hole. I need to start taking control of my life again, to stop letting the past dictate my future. I get up from the table and start moving around the house, picking up the pieces of my life that have been scattered in the chaos. It's a slow process, but with each small step, I feel a little bit of the weight lifting off my shoulders. As the day goes on, I start to feel a glimmer of hope. It's faint, barely there, but it's enough to keep me going. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I can't stay trapped in the past. I need to move forward, to start rebuilding my life, piece by piece. It won't be easy, and I know there will be days when the darkness feels too heavy to bear. But I also know that I've survived this far, and that has to count for something. I've been through hell, but I'm still here, still fighting. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I decide that the only way to move forward is to confront her one last time. I can't move on without understanding everything, without laying it all out on the table. There are too many questions, too much left unsaid, and I can't keep carrying the weight of this betrayal alone. I call her, and she picks up on the third ring. Her voice is calm, almost too calm, and it takes everything in me not to lash out. I ask her to meet me, to talk face to face, and after a moment of silence, she agrees. We choose a neutral location, a small cafe on the edge of town. It feels strange, arranging this like a business meeting, but I know it's the only way we can do this without it turning into a screaming match. When I arrive, she's already there, sitting at a table in the corner, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee. She looks different, more worn, more fragile, but there's still that steel in her eyes, the same determination that brought me to my knees in court. I sit down across from her, the tension between us thick and suffocating. For a moment, we just sit there, staring at each other, the silence stretching out until it's almost unbearable. I don't know how to start, what to say, so I just blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. Why? My voice is rough, the word catching in my throat. Why did you do all of this? She looks at me, her expression unreadable, and I can see the wheels turning in her head. She's weighing her words, deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she sighs and leans back in her chair, her eyes never leaving mine. Because I was tired of being the victim, she says, her voice steady. I was tired of being the one who was always left in the dark, who had to pretend everything was fine while you were out there, doing whatever you wanted. I knew about the affair, and I knew that if I didn't do something, I'd lose everything. So I decided to take control. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew she was angry, that she felt betrayed, but I never imagined it went this deep. I want to argue, to tell her that she could have just talked to me, but I know it's too late for that. The damage is done, and there's no going back. But why did you have to go so far, I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. You could have just divorced me, taken what you wanted. Why the lies, the manipulation, the betrayal with my best friend? She looks away, her jaw tightening. Because I wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to understand what it's like to have your life torn apart, to be blindsided by the people you trusted most. And yes, I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to pay for what you did to me. There it is, the raw truth, laid bare between us. And as much as it stings, I can't deny that part of me understands. I hurt her deeply, and she retaliated in the only way she knew how. It doesn't make it right, but it makes sense in a twisted, painful way. We sit in silence for a while, the weight of everything hanging over us. I don't know what I expected from this conversation, but it wasn't this. I thought maybe we could find some closure, some way to make peace with what happened, but now I'm not so sure. I loved you, I say finally, the words slipping out before I can stop them. I know it doesn't seem like it now, but I did. I lost my way, and I'm sorry. She looks at me, and for a moment I see something flicker in her eyes. Regret, sadness, maybe even a hint of the love we once shared. But it's gone as quickly as it came, replaced by that cold, hard mask she's worn throughout this whole ordeal. I know, she says softly, but it's too late for apologies. We can't go back. And honestly, I don't want to. I'm moving on, and you need to do the same. Her words hit me like a blow, but I know she's right. We're too far gone to salvage anything from this wreckage. The best we can do is pick up the pieces and try to rebuild our lives separately. We talk for a little while longer, hashing out the final details of the divorce, the division of assets, the logistics of moving forward. It's clinical, detached, but it's necessary. We need to untangle our lives from each other to break free from the mess we've created. As we finish up, I feel a strange sense of relief. It's over. There are no more secrets, no more lies. Just the cold, hard truth of what we've done to each other. And while it hurts, it also feels like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. We say our goodbyes, and as I watch her walk away, I realize that this is the last time I'll see her. The woman I married, the woman I loved, is gone, replaced by someone I barely recognize. And maybe that's for the best. We've both changed, both become something darker, something twisted by the pain and betrayal we inflicted on each other. I leave the cafe and drive home, the city passing by in a blur. My mind is a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, but there's one thing I know for sure. I need to get out of here. This place, this city, is tainted with too many memories, too much pain. I need a fresh start, somewhere I can leave all of this behind and begin again. Over the next few days, I make my plans. I sell the house, pack up my belongings, and start looking for a new place to live. It's a daunting task, but it's also liberating. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have control over my life again, like I'm no longer trapped by the mistakes of my past. As I go through the process, I start to reflect on everything that's happened. The affair, the lies, the betrayal. It's all been a wake-up call, a harsh lesson in the consequences of my actions. I can't change what I've done, but I can learn from it. I can use it as a reminder of who I don't want to be, of the kind of life I don't want to live. The move takes longer than I expected, but eventually I find a small apartment in a quiet town far from the city. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and that's all that matters. As I unpack, I feel a sense of peace settling over me, a feeling I haven't had in a long time. I start to build a new routine, a new life. It's not easy. There are days when the weight of everything threatens to pull me under, when the memories come rushing back, and I feel like I'm drowning in guilt and regret. But I push through, taking it one day at a time. I stay in touch with a few old friends, but for the most part, I keep to myself. I need time to heal, to figure out who I am now that everything has changed. I start seeing a therapist, working through the pain and anger that's been festering inside me for so long. It's a slow process, but it helps. As the weeks turn into months, I begin to see glimpses of hope. I start to find joy in the small things, taking a walk in the park, reading a good book, cooking a meal from scratch. It's not much, but it's enough to keep me going, to remind me that life goes on, even after everything falls apart. I think about my wife sometimes, wondering what she's doing, how she's coping with everything, but I know it's not my place to reach out, to try to mend what's been broken beyond repair. We've both made our choices, and now we have to live with them. One day, as I'm walking through town, I come across a small bookstore. It's the kind of place I used to love, back when life was simpler, before everything got so complicated. On a whim, I go inside, browsing the shelves, letting myself get lost in the stories. It's a welcome escape, a reminder that there's still beauty in the world, even after all the darkness I've been through. As I leave the store, a thought crosses my mind. Maybe this is my chance to start over, to write a new chapter in my life. It won't be easy, and there will be challenges along the way, but I'm ready to face them. I've survived this far, and that has to count for something. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to face it with an open heart and a clear mind. I've been through hell, but I've come out the other side stronger and wiser for it. And maybe, just maybe, I can find a way to be happy again. As I walk home, the sun setting behind me, I feel a sense of peace settling over me. The past is behind me, and the future is unwritten. It's time to start living again. I sit alone in my new apartment, the last box unpacked, the last remnants of my old life tucked away. The space is small, modest, but it's mine. For the first time in what feels like years, I'm not surrounded by memories of betrayal and lies. The quiet here is different, peaceful, not oppressive. I can finally breathe. The reflection in the mirror is someone I barely recognize. The lines on my face are deeper, the shadows under my eyes darker. I've aged more in these past months than in the last decade, but there's something else there too. Resolve. I've survived, and that has to mean something. The scars of what happened will always be with me, but I'm learning to live with them. The affair, the lies, the courtroom battles, they've all left their mark, but they've also taught me some hard truths. I was selfish, reckless, and I hurt the people I loved. But I was also betrayed, manipulated, and pushed to the brink. Both of those realities are part of my story now, and I'm done running from them. I think about my ex-wife sometimes, about how everything could have been different if we'd just talked, if we'd faced our problems together instead of tearing each other apart. But there's no point in dwelling on what ifs. We made our choices, and now we have to live with the consequences. She's out of my life now, and I've made peace with that. The bitterness, the anger, they still flare up sometimes, but they don't consume me like they used to. I can see now that holding on to that resentment was only poisoning me. Letting go has been hard, but it's been necessary. I've started to rebuild. I've reconnected with a few old friends, people who stood by me even when I pushed them away. I've made some new connections too. Cautious at first, but gradually opening up, letting people back in. It's a slow process, but it feels good to be moving forward, to be letting the light back into my life. There's a woman I've been seeing occasionally. Nothing serious yet, but there's potential there. She knows a bit about my past, enough to understand why I'm hesitant, why I'm taking things slow. She's patient, kind, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I could maybe, possibly, have a future with someone again. But I'm not rushing it. I'm content to let things unfold naturally, to see where life takes me. Work has become my sanctuary, a place where I can focus, where I can pour my energy into something constructive. It helps to have that routine, that sense of purpose. The chaos of the past year made me realize how much I need stability, how much I value the simple things, like a job well done, like coming home to a space that feels safe. But the nights are still the hardest. When the world quiets down, when there's nothing to distract me, that's when the memories creep in. The courtroom, the evidence, the look in my ex-wife's eyes as she destroyed me piece by piece. Those images still haunt me, and I'm not sure they'll ever completely fade. I've accepted that there will always be a part of me that's broken, that will never fully heal from what happened. But I'm learning to live with that too. I'm learning that it's okay to be scarred, that it doesn't make me weak, it makes me human. Sometimes I wonder what the future holds for me, if I'll ever truly be able to move on, to find happiness again. But I try not to dwell on that too much. For now, I'm focused on the present, on the small victories. Like getting through a day without feeling overwhelmed by the past. Like finding joy in the simple things. The city feels different now, less like a place of memories and more like a place of possibilities. I walk the streets, feeling the sun on my face, the breeze in my hair, and for the first time in a long time, I don't feel weighed down by the past. I feel lighter, freer. I don't know where I'm headed, and that's okay. I've learned that life is unpredictable, that it can change in an instant. But I'm not afraid of that anymore. I've faced the worst, and I've come out the other side. Whatever comes next, I know I can handle it. As I sit by the window watching the sun set over the city, I feel a sense of peace that I haven't felt in a long time. The darkness is still there, lurking at the edges, but it doesn't control me anymore. I'm learning to live with it, to let it be a part of my story without letting it define me. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, and I'm grateful for that. I've been through hell, but it's shaped me, made me stronger, more resilient. I've learned to be more honest, more aware of my flaws, and more willing to face my demons head on. As the last light fades and the city lights come on, I realize that I'm okay with not having all the answers, with not knowing what the future holds. I'm okay with just being in this moment, with taking life one day at a time. I've learned that the most important thing is to keep moving forward, to keep living, even when it's hard. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I stand up, stretch, and take one last look out the window. The city is alive with possibilities, and for the first time in a long time, I'm ready to embrace them. Tomorrow's a new day, and I'm ready to face it, whatever it brings. I've survived the storm, and now it's time to start living again, on my own terms, with no more lies, no more betrayals. Just me, facing the world head on, ready for whatever comes next.